You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Paralympian para track and field athlete Lauren Fields. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in competing in para track and field?
Yes, I love that question. So I actually started in para track and field when I was 7 years old. From in my family, track is kind of something that we all do together. Like it's the family activity. So I was actually going to one of my cousin's track meets. It was an all-comers meet, and I decided that I wanted to try to run the 100 meter because I used to be ambulatory. So I ran the 100 meter and I ended up meeting a wheelchair racer. And then I fell in love with the sport of para track and field.
What was that experience like going to Illinois and competing in wheelchair race?
Um, I really love being at the University of Illinois. It's like one of the best places to train. Just the environment here very is very competitive in the sense that we all have the same goal. We're all trying to like be the better versions of ourselves, or make that Paralympic team or make a world team or hit a standard. We all have like a goal of excellence, so it creates a really positive environment to get to where you want to be.
While at Illinois, what was it like representing them and putting on that track and field kit for them?
So actually I'm a freshman at Illinois, so I've yet to actually get to wear the I yet. But that is definitely something that I'm looking forward to, just being able to be a part of like the legacy of this amazing program.
How was that experience like for you coming to Illinois after your Paralympic journey?
Um, it's been a pretty wild ride, like going straight from the games to college. It's definitely an experience because you have to kind of get in like a certain like mental headspace to like be at the Paralympic Games. It's you're very focused, you're very like serious, and yes, you're trying to enjoy the moments, but you're also like thinking about your competition. So going from that like high stress environment, coming back home and then moving across the country was absolutely insane. But now that stuff has settled down a little bit, I think I'm enjoying it more than I did when I got here.
How was that training like preparing for your first Paralympic race?
I think the training was definitely intense because when I went into this past track season, Paris was kind of like a lofty goal and not something that we were sure that I was going to achieve. So it was pretty interesting going into trials and thinking, my season's either going to end in 2 days or I'm going to keep going for the next month. So it was definitely interesting, like, taking a quick step back after trials to kind of like recover for a minute and then just go straight into like training. I did more volume, more weight, just kind of packing in as much as we could before we had to start tapering for the games. So it was intense.
What was that training like preparing for the Paralympics? And when you got to the Paralympics, what was that feeling like making it?
Um, the training was definitely one of the hardest things that I've done in my entire life. It was very strenuous, very lots of like long hours and just like refining my technique or going over plans with my former coach, Teresa Skinner. We just kind of had to refine what I used to do to try to like perfect my craft in time for the games. And actually being there was wow, it was the most ethereal experience I've ever had, just being around like all the athletes that I've looked up to for my entire life. Because I'm 18, so all the athletes that like started their like Paralympic journey in London are people I've grown up looking up to my entire life. So being able to see the athletes who have been there since Beijing and saying, oh wait, I'm a Paralympian too. Like now I'm included in that, group of elite athletes was just an absolutely insane feeling.
How was that experience like for you, as you said, getting to be in the village and seeing those athletes that you grew up as a kid looking up to?
Being in the village was absolutely amazing because honestly, the athletes, we are really spoiled when we get to go to the games. Our stuff is taken care of. We don't have to worry about like food or transportation. Our like only job is to just like experience, the city or like in this case like the Paris village and compete. So it's the village is amazing. There were like places for athletes to hang out or like you can meet other athletes and they had like yoga sessions where you could like make baguettes. Like the village was, yes, it was like super sports focused and super sports centered, but they also gave us enough opportunity to kind of like de-stress and decompress. So I really did like the village.
While in the village, what was it like getting to see some of those athletes like Jessica Long, Jessica Hims that you may have grown up watching or competing with?
I think of this in like two ways. So the first way is just like seeing other American athletes was super awesome because we all had the same like apartment building that we were in essentially. So you'd be like going up the elevator and you'd run into like Nick Mayhew or like Jesse Hines or somebody, or just like running into these like American legends in Paralympic sport casually, which kind of does change your perspective. Or, you're in the elevator, like, oh, how many games is this for you? And they're like, oh, this is games number 5. And I'm just like, wow, you've been doing this for a while. Like, that's 20 years. But I think seeing all these athletes, especially when you get to like your competition venue, which is going to be more of the athletes that you recognize, it's definitely more surreal. Like being able to go out on the warm up track and see like a 5-time world champion just warming up on the track casually. It definitely is a crazy experience because you grow up watching these people on a screen, like it, with posters of their faces in your room. And then you're suddenly on the track with them and they don't, everybody sees himself as equal kind of once you get to that level. Like we're all Paralympians. So being able to like see them and then for them to be like, oh, congratulations on your first games, like welcome to the Paralympic family, is definitely a crazy feeling because there's at that point it's like you've made it. I've kind of you're into like this whole new category of sport, which was super super fun.
How was that feeling like putting on your first Paralympic track gear and kit?
I definitely cried like because there's so much effort that goes into making the team. Just getting like the package in the mail that says like this is your Team USA kit, being able to like put on USA gear that was my own and not gifted to me by another like another Paralympian was crazy. Just thinking this is like a piece of clothing that I earned through like hard work and like teamwork with other people. Being able to kind of think about all the people that got me here and just like wear the USA, across my chest made me super grateful. And I definitely will never forget that moment.
While in the Paralympic Village, what was it like getting to trade pins with other countries?
Pin trading is the most fun and it's a great way to meet people because you have your pins and A lot of athletes will get like specialty pins or something, and you can just go. It's a nice way to kind of break the ice and get to meet people, just like outside of your country or like from other sports. Like for example, I met one of the athletes from the Paralympic refugee team, and we got to have a nice conversation about our sports because we both happened to be in athletics. So it was super fun. Highly recommend asking a Paralympian or Olympian about their pin collection because there is most definitely a pin collection that you get after going to the games.
What are some of your favorite memories and moments competing in Paris?
Um, my favorite, ooh, that's hard. Um, my favorite moment from the games, it's actually two moments. That's a two-part question, I guess. Favorite moment was being able to go to the track for starters practice. So it's like the first time you get to see, for us, what was that purple track and hear the gun and like be around all those other athletes. So being able to like step foot on that track and, get a couple starts in was just absolutely crazy because the stadium's empty for starters practice, but then you're just imagining the 75,000 people that are going to be there when you're competing. And it was a very, very fun experience going down the tunnel and onto the track and just realizing this is where I'm going to be competing. And as soon as I finish that race and I cross that line, I'll officially be a Paralympian. That was my favorite memory.
Of course, while at the Paralympics, what was that Mama I Made It moment like?
um, there were definitely a lot of tears. I think I was just so overwhelmed after I finished um, what would have been my 100, so my first Paralympic race. I was just so shocked because when you're like a kid, you always think, "Oh, I want to be a Paralympian or I want to be an Olympian," and it's like that one goal that you're kind of like striving towards, just like, "Oh, if it happened, then it'd be so great, and if it happened, then I do this and that." I can tell you this: when it happens, you don't know what to do with yourself because it's so foreign. I can't really describe it, but it's you remember like who you were when you started the sport, at least for me. Like I saw that like 7-year old who just like found out about the sport. I don't think that she would imagine 11 years later on the day I would officially become a Paralympian.
How does it feel to have Paralympian behind your last name and PLY?
um, it's definitely an honor. I mean, I haven't even graduated college yet, and I already have some fancy letters after my name, which is honestly, it's an honor. Um, Definitely think when I was like updating my Instagram, I was like, I can put PLY after my name. Oh my goodness, I like hesitated pushing the button. I'm like, did that actually happen or am I daydreaming? Like somebody pinch me. Um, but it's definitely an honor to be able to have those letters after my name.
What does it mean to you to be in part of an elite organization like the Olympics and Paralympians and always be known as an Olympian forever and always?
Um, I think for me, what it means is honestly everything because especially like as a Paralympian, you grow up and you see these athletes and you like look up to an athlete that you kind of like see yourself in. Um, so for me, I grew up looking up to like Alexa Halka, who no longer does wheelchair racing at this moment, she's retired, but looking up to like these different athletes like Tatiana McFadden, Alexa Halko, Susanna Scaroni, like all these legendary names in like what for me was wheelchair racing, like knowing that like at some point even now or like later in my career that I can be that person for somebody else is just so it's humbling, but it's everything because in the Olympic and Paralympic movements, like it's not a very as much as we're like competing, for like our own titles or our own PRs or our own races, it's very community centered. Everybody has this attitude of giving back. So now being able to give back like with the title of Paralympian is an honor to
How's it like getting to meet your fans and having them ask for your autographs and photos with
me. It was definitely crazy. I think after I finished the 100 prelim, I didn't think anybody would want to, like take a picture or anything. And so I was like, can I get a picture with you? Like, you looked amazing while you were racing. It's definitely an interesting experience. Ask somebody asking to take a picture, or like I went out with my family and I had to like take an Uber back to the village. And I'm like, wait, you're a Paralympian. Can I get a picture? It's definitely interesting how much people pay attention to like the little details. If I'm like wearing something from a Team USA kit, how quickly people notice that, especially like at a host games, is absolutely insane. So it's definitely not something I think I'll ever get used to, but
you. What was that feeling like receiving your Paralympic rings, knowing that all of your hard work paid off?
oh, getting the ring was it's so crazy because you see all these like, for me, my coach back home in Spokane is also she's a Paralympic coach. So I've like grown up like looking at her different rings from like London or whatever game she was deciding to wear that day. But growing up and seeing that Paralympic ring and her going, one day you can have one of these too. So getting my ring with my name on it was just crazy. I mean, I know I keep saying that, but there is some level of just like mind-blowing shock that comes with making the Paralympic team because you're so lucky. Like, not every athlete gets to experience this in their lifetime. They can strive for it, but actually getting able to like experience it is a whole nother thing.
What are what is it like, and what are some of your rituals during the games?
um, I am not a very ritualistic athlete, but I will do two things. The first thing is the night before competition, I have to wear the same pair of pajamas every day. Not every day, only the day before I compete. I wear the same set of pajamas. They're like bright red and they have little French bulldogs on them. So those will always be on the night before a competition. And then the second thing I do is I have like a vision journal and I'll like journal the things that I want to see myself doing on the track when I compete. So that's my like pre-competition ritual.
Who are some of the influential people in your career that have shaped you into the athlete you are today?
For me, the influential people would definitely be my family, which like my mom got me into track and into racing, and she always encouraged me to like be active and be in sports. So I couldn't do any of it without my mom. And also my coach, um, back home in Spokane, Teresa Skinner, saw a like fifth grader. I was in fifth grade when I met her, and I was like, I want to be a Paralympian. And then she didn't look at me like I was crazy or, like, oh, that kid has dreams. Good for them. She took me seriously. So I remember the moment I was able to kind of, put on more load when I hit middle school, when I could start training like 2 days a week. I thought I was so crazy. Like, I got to train 2 days a week with my coach. Like, this is crazy. This is what elite athletes do. I didn't realize they trained more than that. But definitely my coaches and my family, they've been there through all like the hard moments where you think you want to quit, all like the high points where you got that PR or you're at your first Paralympic trials. They were there for all of that. So I'm super thankful for them, and I definitely wouldn't be the athlete that I am today without them.
What is it like getting to race alongside some of your teammates like Jessica Hims, Noel, and Beatrice?
Um, Being able to in my classification, there's one other racer, Eva Housen. Being able to race with like somebody who's also from the States, especially having just another person from the US in your classification is huge because it doesn't happen a lot of the time. You'll see some countries like with only one athlete. So being able to share the track with another American is a very, very amazing experience, especially like when it's an individual sport and the person who you're racing with is like a returning Paralympian. So in my class, Eva is a two-time Paralympian. Her first games was in Tokyo, and my first games was in Paris. So being able to race with somebody who I like was able to see have her Paralympic moment, and then to have her race alongside me for like my first Paralympic final is just amazing.
What is that like getting to see some of those racers that have competed multiple times while you were competing for the first
It definitely, I don't think that I can accurately describe the, it's so fun, but it's also, at least for you, it's awkward because they're like, oh, what's your name? And it's like, I know exactly who you are. Um, so being able to like race with or see those, like what for me became household names and having them know who I am as an athlete is crazy. I definitely had that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, mom, today I met the world record holder in our class. I'm like, today I met Hannah Cockcroft. This is insane. She knows who I am now. We've raced each other. So it's definitely it's a childhood dream. I think you can't really put the half of it into words. Um, but again, it's just watching the people that you know are like at such a high caliber, like training wise, mentally, just in terms of speed and endurance, and then being able to be at the games and then realize that's where you can be, either today or later on in your career.
while in the Paralympic Village, what was it like getting to see some of those household names that you may have looked up to as a kid?
Um, I think it was definitely it was definitely very that was part of the I made it moment. It's like I recognize that person from this race and oh that person's a gold medalist. Like it's very he recognized people and it also made me recognize what can happen if I like continue in the sport. Like someday I might be that person that somebody like recognizes as a household name. Hopefully, I still got a little ways to go before that happens. But definitely was just like a realization of like my potential, I think.
What was it like for you getting to live out your Paralympic dream?
Um, it was very, very emotional and like you get all the highs of getting to be at the village and then you get all like the nerves and all the things that come with it, and for me it was amazing because I got to like live out like that Paralympic dream, especially in my first games with one of my best friends in track and in life, Hannah Diedrich, who's a two-time Paralympian. Being able to like, be Hannah's roommate at a games and go through all of this with one of my best friends was one of the best experiences ever.
What would you tell your younger self now looking back on your career as a Paralympian?
I would tell her that she shouldn't be discouraged if something doesn't go her way or if she doesn't understand something right away, and that everything comes with time and that she just has to stick to it.
Did you ever think that one day you would be a Paralympian?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I always dreamt about it, and I was like, one day dreams have to become reality if you work hard enough. I always told myself that. Um, so I definitely thought I would. I didn't think I'd become a Paralympian this young, but I definitely thought I would.
How is it like balancing being a Paralympian and going to college?
Um, it means you wake up really early. Um, I probably wake up at around 6 every day to go train or earlier. It's just kind of waking up early, putting in the hours, and making sure that I'm like, staying on top of classes and also like listening to my body so that I know what I need to do when I'm not training, or what I need to do if I'm not studying, like being able to manage my time and what I'm doing so that I can still like function at the top of being a student and as an athlete.
What are some of your future plans and goals as a para track and field athlete?
Definitely, I don't think too far. I do think far in the future, but definitely like the most immediate goal would be trying to make the national team or the world team coming up for this following year. Just kind of setting my sights on improving my times just so that I can, make the national team, hopefully make worlds, and that way I have a lot more world experience under my belt coming into this next quad, because 4 years is a lot of time, and 4 years is also a very short amount of time in the world of track and field. So just kind of working with my coaches and figuring out what I need to do to be better. That's a goal, like figuring out ways to like recognize what I need to do for self improvement. Because when you're like a younger athlete, it's super easy. Your coach will, like, tell you, oh, this is what needs to be fixed. But also, especially in track, some stuff comes to preference too. So just figuring out what I need to be better and hopefully make the national team and the world team this year.
What will that
That's my
feeling feel? What will that feeling feel like to get to represent the Paralympics and competing in Los Angeles?
Oh, I so hope that I make the LA team in 4 years, because it'll be different. It's at home, you when you go to the games, it's not very often you get to have your family there, but especially being somebody from the West Coast, LA is, in the backyard. So I definitely want to be there just so that like my family can see, so that my grandparents can finally watch me race, and definitely be amazing racing like at home in their home country.
What advice would you give those athletes looking to get into adaptive sports?
I would say don't be afraid to try new things. And if you don't like something right away, don't immediately get rid of it, or don't like give up instantly because you don't like something right away, because you never know if that ends up being the thing that you fall in love with. So I'd say don't give up, don't be afraid to try new things, and always ask questions, because I guarantee you somebody will have an answer and they'll be more than willing to give it to you.
What advice would you give those Paralympians competing for the first time or multiple times?
And advice I would give to a first time Paralympian is, honestly, don't put too much pressure on yourself. And just allow yourself to enjoy the moment. I mean, you can become a Paralympian multiple times, and hopefully I do, but you only have your first one time. You only have your first Paralympic race once, and you only have your first games once. So just kind of experience all the things and take care of yourself and just be in the moment. That way, when you look back, you don't think of like what you could have done, and it's just like a happy memory of what you did do.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media?
So my Instagram is Lolo_hey, and that is the main way to find me. So hopefully I'll be posting a little bit more content coming up the next few months too. So that is definitely the best way to find me.
Thank you again, Lauren Fields, for your interview, and best luck in your future as a Paralympian para track and field athlete.
Thank you so much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Lauren Fields, for your interview. Best luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.